Hi there! In this video, we'll talk about the appeals process of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. So let's dive in! Hi there, my name is Katherine. I'm a lawyer and I also think differently. A few people have asked me why I'm still covering Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's legal issues. This is why. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's trial has been considered as the trial of the century, and I quite agree. For the first time, thousands of people, in fact millions of people worldwide, are interested in our legal process here in the United States. I think that's unbelievable. That's why I'm covering their legal trials and their legal appeal, and I love explaining the legal process to others. That's why I'm a legal analyst for law and crime, and also for my YouTube video here and my other social media platform. What is the best tool to teach people about our legal process other than to use events, facts, and trials like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's trial that is entertaining and people are actually interested in them? Don't you wish learning was this fun when you were in school? Here, everyone is actually asking about these questions. How does the jury process work? What is an appeal? How does the appeal process work? What is hearsay? How do you actually say objection? And what is the jury system? All of these questions have been asked throughout the trial and now even after the verdict has been rendered. And I love these questions because they make people think about the legal process and whether or not they know they can apply what they're learning in this scenario, in this trial, in this appeal to their own lives. So that if they find themselves in the same situation, let's say in a trial, they'll understand the trial process, or if they find themselves in an appeal, they'll understand what an appeal process is about. That's why I'm covering the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial and appeal, because it is my hope that I can impart these legal knowledge and have people who are interested in it. Before we talk about the appeals process, let's talk about a question that I've received that is really important to clarify. The question is, didn't Amber Heard already appeal her case with Judge Azcarate? That's a good question because it can be confusing what just happened after the jury reached its verdict. First of all, what Amber Heard filed is not an appeal. It's actually called a post-trial motion. Post-trial motions are very common in terms of when a jury verdict is reached or a judgment is reached by the judge. Then what happens is the losing party tend to ask the judge to reconsider and just double check and make sure that whatever the judgment is correct. And that's what Amber Heard did. But it's not the same as the appeals process because she's simply asking Judge Azcarate in her court to look at the evidence that the jury looked at and make sure that there's enough evidence, because Amber Heard believed that there was not sufficient evidence for the jury to reach their verdict. But as we saw, Judge Azcarate issued a written order that actually denied Amber Heard's post-trial motion. Specifically, she wrote, after review of defendant's post-trial motions, plaintiff's opposition, and the relevant statute and case law, it is therefore ordered as follows. Defendant Amber Laura Heard's post-trial motions 1 through 6 are denied for the reasons stated on the record. That one sentence that Judge Azcarate wrote is very telling when she merely said, I'm denying Amber Heard's post-trial motion, and what's the basis? For the reasons stated on the record, and then that's it. If Amber Heard did not raise the Juror 15 issue, that would have been the extent of Judge Azcarate's order. Basically, what she was saying is, it's already on the record. We heard it for over 6 weeks in this trial, and whatever is on the record does support what the jury verdict was. Judge Azcarate's order is not part of the appeals process. It's still within her court system. So that's why it's not an appeal. But since Judge Azcarate denied Amber Heard's post-trial motions, that is basically the end of Amber Heard's procedural opportunity to ask the trial court to reconsider the verdict of the jury. That's why her next step now is to move to the higher level of court, which is the Court of Appeals, which is what we'll talk about here. Let's talk about the judicial system. In the United States, different states have different judicial system. But since the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial was in the state of Virginia, we'll discuss the Virginia court system, which is similar to most of the states. So let's go ahead and check it out. This is the diagram of the Virginia judicial system. We'll talk about the circuit court. The circuit court is the court where Judge Azcarate resided. That's the lower court. Going up the circuit court is the Court of Appeals. Appeals. After the Court of Appeals, the higher court is the Supreme Court, the Virginia Supreme Court. That's the state level. The state level meaning Virginia. In the federal level meaning the United States, it's very similar where you have the lower courts and then the Court of Appeal and then the U.S. Supreme Court. But again, since this is a state court, we are using the Virginia judicial system. The trial happened in the circuit courts, specifically the court of Judge Azcarate, where there were the 7 jurors that reached their unanimous verdict. The Court of Appeals, which is the higher court, are composed of different judges. So the appeal of Amber Heard will not be heard by Judge Azcarate. Instead, it will be heard by 3 Court of Appeals judges. Right now, there are 22 Virginia Court of Appeal judges. Here are their pictures. Out of that 22, 3 judges will be in the panel of judges who will be hearing and reviewing Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's appeal. But oral arguments in an appeal, especially this appeal, will still be far away because it takes several months or even years to get the oral argument scheduled. So we'll still have to wait and see. But right now, there are other procedures happening and we'll talk about that next. What's the first step in filing an appeal? That is filing a document called the Notice of Appeal and also posting what is called the appeals bond, which is $500 here in Virginia. Another question that keeps on coming up is people are asking, didn't Amber Heard have to post the $10.35 million? The answer is no. For appeal, she really only has to post the appeal bond, which is $500. The $10.35 million is part of the suspension bond. The suspension bond is a different kind of bond for appeal. You only post that if, again, the magic word is if, you don't want the opposing party to collect the money from you. So if Amber Heard does not want Johnny Depp to collect the $10.35 million, then she must post a suspension bond. But even if she doesn't post a suspension bond, which we haven't seen her post at this time, her appeals process still continues and she still has that right for appeal. So hopefully that clarifies that issue. Similarly, Johnny Depp did not post a suspension bond for $2 million. That should give you an indication as well that it is not required for Johnny Depp to post that suspension bond so that the appeals process begins. Johnny Depp only posted the appeal bond as required by the rules. People have also asked, well, at the hearing on June 24th, 2022, didn't Judge Azcarate say that a suspension bond has to be posted? I actually disagree. When we look at the transcript here at page 17, line 19 to 21, the court, meaning Judge Azcarate, actually said, that's fine, and when you appeal, there will be a suspension bond too. You understand that? And she's asking Elaine Bredehoff. And Elaine says, we plan on addressing that with the post-trial motions, Your Honor. And then the court says, well, I can address it right now if you. Elaine says, I prefer to be able to. And then the court says, I understand what you prefer, but I'm going to tell you the suspension bond would be the amount of judgment plus 6% interest for a year because that's what it should be. Okay, Elaine says, the court. Okay, so that's one less thing you have to address. Ms. Bredehoff, well, will Your Honor permit me to at least address that in the post-trial motions? Judge Azcarate, if you wish, but that's my order right now. Elaine Bredehoff, I understand, completely understand. The court. Okay, Elaine, thank you, Your Honor. And that's the end of Elaine talking about that. I think that discussion between Elaine Bredehoff and Judge Azcarate during the June 24th hearing had to do with Elaine wanting to ask the court in her post-trial motion the amount of the suspension bond and the amount of the interest rate for the suspension bond. Because Amber Heard could actually ask the court to lower that amount because as we saw in Elaine's interview and Amber Heard's interview post-trial, she could not post the suspension bond. And the reason why I believe that's what Elaine is talking about when she said, I want to address that in my post-trial motion, and Judge Azcarate says, no, I'm going to address that right now in my order of how much the suspension bond is and the 6% interest per year. It's because in Virginia Rule 8.01-676.1, there's the subsection J. So let's take a look at subsection J. That says that the amount of the suspending bond shall be set, and the amount of the suspending bond shall include an amount equivalent to 1 year's interest. So you don't know what that 1 year interest is because the trial court or Judge Azcarate has to indicate that. So that's what that discussion was all about. Hi! Yes, I changed clothes and I look different. I am recording this in a different day because I didn't get to finish before my other video, but who says I have to wear the same thing? So there you have it. That's how the appeals process works in general. There are obviously a lot of other nuances and other specific rules, but these are what we can think about for now as a broader perspective. And as each of the procedures happen, I will create more video to explain what they are. If you learned something new from this video, go ahead and click subscribe. That's that red button right there, or give us a like. It will really help our channel so we can provide more value and information like this for you. Also, if you want to take a look at any of the documents we talked about today, go ahead and check it out in the description below. If you have any questions or would like us to go ahead and record a specific video for a specific legal information or legal question that you have, please go ahead and put that in the comments below and we'll try our best to answer that for you. Thanks for watching!